Good afternoon world, and thank you for watching Hue in Colour. So my friends, very recently I've been talking a lot about manifestation, and I've been talking about different techniques and strategies for essentially creating more abundance in your life and positioning ourselves effectively within our existing reality to create more opportunities, to create more abundance, to see opportunity around us. So today in this video, in this episode, I want to start by talking about an experience I had when I moved to Italy at the age of 23. So in 2012, when I worked for an architecture practice in Italy. Now, within this experience, I had a genuine epiphany that my reality was being created by my thoughts, decisions, and actions. It was the biggest awareness and the biggest awakening of that, because I realised that I'd moved to a completely different location. I'd moved to Italy, and I was essentially creating life from a blank canvas. And I asked myself a question one night when I was going to sleep. I asked myself, who is writing tomorrow? And this was a massive epiphany for me, a huge revelation, because I had this realisation that the future is almost just writing itself. If we leave it as default, things would just unfold naturally. And I thought back to when I was at school and when I was at college and university. You had a program, you had a routine, you knew what you were going to do. You know, in the morning you might have had history class, then you might have had drawing in the afternoon, then you'd learn about the principles and structure of architectural design in the afternoon, whatever it is. So you knew what you were doing, and then you might plan an afternoon. Oh, I'm going to meet my friends at the steakhouse, or I'm going to meet everybody in the afternoon for some drinks, or go to the gym, whatever it may be. And I started realising we construct our reality. So that was the basic first fundamental principle, is that we construct reality. Oh wow, isn't this a brilliant synchronicity? If only I could flip the camera right now. On the wall over there, you might not be able to see it, but it's actually saying the future is unwritten. Isn't that just incredible? The future is unwritten. You know, could you get more of a synchronicity than that, my friends? So the point of today, that's actually really made my day, that has. The future is unwritten. It's actually written on the wall. And it is. Oh my God, that's blown me away. Right, I'll stay on track and I'll park that for a second. But what a synchronicity that is. My friends, the future is unwritten. We are writing it all the time. And so that's what I realised in Italy. That was the first breakthrough when I saw beyond surface level reality. So I started realising we manifest, we create. So then I delved a bit deeper into that. I thought, well, how do we create things? How do we manifest things? Well, you know, we set an intention, we create plans, you know, we envision, we imagine, and then we act on it. I was like, brilliant, that's a great start. I can start with that. You know, how do I want to plan my week? Who do I want to meet? You know, what projects do I want to complete? Brilliant. Then I started delving a bit deeper, and I came across a video by Peter Sage, a really brilliant mentor and expert when it comes to mind mastery. And I remember I found this video at just the right time, because I was looking on YouTube for luck. I became intrigued by this concept of luck, and I was watching the Morgan Freeman documentary on luck and some of those brilliant Through the Wormhole documentaries, and I thought, let's find out about luck. Typed in on YouTube. The first video that popped up was Peter Sage talking about the reticular activation system. So what we put in our mind, how that shows up. This idea that, you know, life will just keep showing up whatever we give importance. It's almost a sense of what theme we create, what we deem as important will keep showing up. So I started learning about that, and I learned about luck. And over time, I started watching more of Peter's videos, and I was lucky to go to a few of his training sessions and classes, so I learned a bit about that. But what I started to realise, guys, amidst all my research when it comes to manifestation, is that it's about choices and it's about decisions. Because here's the thing. Everything in life is focus, right? So every time we are essentially looking to create something, it's coming from a place of focus. Now, in the elite societies, they are trained to be discerning and selective when it comes to how they respond to reality, how they respond to, you know, what's around them in this immediate moment, which Peter Sage refers to very wonderfully as materialized sense data. And people in the elite societies are trained to be discerning about how they respond to what's around them, because they know that when you create something new, you're creating it from a different space. So this is the key subject I want to get into, guys. So if you stick with me on this, I've got something really, really important to share. So when we're creating something new, we're doing it from a different space, a different mindset. So we're actually doing it from a different brainwave state. So, you've got your alpha, beta, your meta, and your delta frequency, or in some ways people talk about the gamma, but that's more to do with ultrasound, I believe. However, there's these different frequencies in which we operate on, and the thinking frequency is the kind of like baseline entry level frequency. It's there for solving problems, for thinking strategically, for sort of planning your day, for doing everyday tasks. It's a thinking frequency, and every now and again we might dip into the kind of autopilot. That's another frequency when we're driving to work, when we're making a meal that we've made many times before, when we're just doing our routine. We might not be thinking about it too much. But then also you get other frequencies of the delta frequency, where you're asleep, where you're dreaming, where you're getting these brilliant ideas. And then in addition to that, you also get the frequency that children are in up until the age of 7, where they are in this kind of imaginative, creative frequency. So what is fascinating is that when people are in those creative frequencies, they're able to get insight and intuition. And that is where creation takes place. And within the training that I went on and other books that I read, it spoke about how often people are in the thinking state and they're essentially creating more of the same. Because when we look at reality, we're essentially seeing a snapshot of where we're at this moment in time. So what we're doing when we, for example, look at our bank balance, we're seeing a snapshot of all the decisions we've made, everything that's led up to that point, all the energy that's led up to that point of what we did and how we felt about money and the actions we took, and we're seeing a snapshot. So it's not really an accurate representation of your internal value or where you're going, because you know that you're going on to earn more money. But when we look at that bank balance on our phone or, on the machine, we're essentially seeing a snapshot of the past, right? You're seeing, what has happened in the past and where it's at. And all it's doing is just reaffirming that reality. However, when you want to create something different, you have to envision something different. Will Smith spoke about this in an interview once. He said, you've got to imagine and really imagine so hard that you're going to get a different outcome this time. And that's fascinating. Really, that is essentially what is happening. You've got to imagine a different outcome. So what's happening when we create from this space of essentially infinite potential, as Jeffrey Allen from Mind Valley would describe, if you've ever done any of these meditations and these kind of coaching sessions with him, the field of infinite potential, abundance, when we're creating from that space, what we are essentially doing, guys, is we are creating something new. So whenever you want to create something new, the key thing is to draw from new stimuli, to draw from new examples. So look for other people that are doing similar things, that you want to do, look for precedents, much like we would have done at school or in university when we look for examples and precedents of what's happened. We need to do that in our own life when we're creating something new, when we're moving forward. So look for examples. That's why people journal. That's why we have mood boards to get excited and inspired. And then comes the feeling aspect. So that's the other thing. So to feel it, to imagine it, that's great, because then you kind of already have it, don't you? You're sort of embodying what you do. So that's a big change in itself. And then you can resonate with what you're looking to achieve. So really, it's just through reinforcing. But the most important thing I wanted to share, guys, is that, sometimes we have to take a step back from what's around us, because what's around us is like a snapshot. Like, I'm here in Paris now, I'm walking through these really quirky streets, and it's a beautiful place. It's a really sunny Sunday, and this is the snapshot here. I could focus on how some of the roads are blocked off by the police and there's different demonstrations. There's a big party going on, somebody's wedding, there's all these different things going on. There's people having a coffee, there might be a drunk person in the street talking to himself, kicking a bin or something, and then there's pigeons flying around eating people's food. And then there's people having a good time, laughing, chatting, the sun's beaming, there's some great art and design, there's some nice pictures on the wall, there's beautiful architectural facades, and there's just so much going on, and whatever I place my focus on will be the theme of my life. But equally, I could just be completely dismissive of what's going on. I could be in my own world, and there's nothing wrong with that. Only when it gets to the point when I've got to cross the road to be aware that I don't walk into a car, or I don't knock into somebody, or you know, if something's falling off a building site, you know, I want to be aware of that. Keep my ears and my eyes open. But for the most part, there's nobody stopping you from being completely oblivious to what's going on. However, when we're doing that, we need to make sure that we're placing a focus on something important. So this is when reality starts to build. Whatever we focus on will just appear more and more, because we've been told that life is a reflection of how we feel, and we've been told about laws of attraction and what we created, but really, reality is a reflection of whatever we deem to be most important. So reality is formed from whatever we place in our vortex, as Esther Hicks would describe, as being important, as being the theme, and then that will keep showing up. So we almost need to be completely committed to creating the life we want. So we need to like reinforce it. Like if you imagine, if you've ever seen a tape drawing of a car design, you get these drawings that start off as quite rough and ready. You might see a Porsche. As a child, I love these drawings. You might see them in museums. You see a Porsche and you see all the wavy lines, and there's loads of pencil drawings. And then eventually, when they're ready, they go round it with a thick permanent marker or a Sharpie. It doesn't have to be a permanent pen, but just a thick black pen or blue pen. They go round it and they draw the shape. And that's what a lot of artists do when they create Disney characters. You know, you've got all these sketches. If you ever open a book on the history of Disney, you'll see all these really intricate characters that have, you know, certain stages of the drawing process, and then eventually they draw around it. That's what we got to do in life, guys. When we create reality, you know, we got to keep doing these practices. Like, keep getting up at that particular time, you know, keep having that routine, you know, get up, make a healthy breakfast, then I'm sat at the MacBook, then I'm doing this, then I'm going out for a walk. Oh, now I'm making a phone call, now I'm sending an email. Oh, I might study my own subject of choice for an hour or two. You know, every time we do this more and more, like, it expands exponentially, it starts to ripple, and then you might find yourself having a conversation about that topic with a friend or someone in the industry you want to work with. You might find yourself noticing something. You know, very recently, my wife and I went on a trip to Fuerteventura, and we hired out just the most comfortable car we could find that, you know, was good value, and it did what we needed, and it happened to be a Toyota. And I never even thought of this car in the past. I don't think about this type of Toyota, you know, in my day-to-day life. It's just not something I think about. And then you guessed it, lo and behold, we come back home, and I'm seeing this car everywhere. Like, it's just appeared. But again, that's because it's in my mind, isn't it? So we want to create something. Let's put it in our mind. Like, what's the goal today? Have fun with it. Say to yourself, right, start small if you like. Let's say, okay, today I want to make £20, $20. Well, what could I do? Could I sell something on Vinted? What about that cardigan, that pair of shoes that's been in the cupboard? Maybe I could clean them. Maybe I've got an old toothbrush and some soap, and I could give those shoes a good clean. You know, if the sole is intact, if the shape is intact, then we could sell it. You see, we look for opportunity, and that is how we change our life. Wonderful people, I'm going to say thank you for watching this video. I myself am now going to pop into some vintage stores, because this is what I love to do. I love looking at old jean jackets and quirky, unique items and suede kind of coats and things, and I'm just going to have fun with it. And who knows, maybe I might find something that I will sell on eBay or Vinted, and I might treat my partner and I to a lovely meal. So guys, you can create it. These are the techniques, these are the ways to do it. I almost wanted to say these are the breaks, that famous hip-hop song, but guys, these are the breakthroughs. So, you know, find a way and find that focus. Have a wonderful day. You've got this.